Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to Making It, presented to you by Fireside. I'm your host, Terry Woolman. My guest today is artist, entrepreneur, ELEW. I appreciate you joining us every week, and I'd like to share my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly. And I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well, without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and with abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance, and don't forget to have fun along the way. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you, T.
I'm so happy to hear that. We had the pleasure of meeting recently at one of your live performances in Los Angeles. And I was already following you through the pandemic. You kept me inspired and entertained with your home recordings and your live performances that you would do. And I thank you for that. You lifted me. And it looks like you lifted yourself by doing that as well, through the pandemic. So, but it was so great to hear you live. So great to meet you. And I want to start this show before I even read your bio, and before we really officially start our conversation, by just encouraging all of you to go to Spotify and to go to Instagram and follow both of us, actually. So if you go to Spotify, just look up ELEW and hit subscribe. You want to find me, go to Terry Woolman, hit subscribe. It's so important that you subscribe, because that's how we continue to be able to provide you music streaming for free. We monetize that when you subscribe, and it doesn't cost you anything. So please do that. Also go to Instagram, and your Instagram again, so I don't have to look it up and get it wrong. What is it?
It's at ELEW, that's ELEW, like Eric Lewis, at ELEW Rockjazz.
Perfect. And you've got new music coming out. I've got new music coming out. I just wanted to take a really quick moment. I've got a new album coming out later this year that's called Surface. And I'm looking forward to sharing all of that with you. But there's a new single that's coming out to radio next week. So keep an eye out, and you can subscribe to that as well. It's my reinvention, reimagination, which you do with your music a lot as well, ELEW, of the iconic song "What Is Hip" by Tower Power. We did it all virtually, recorded it globally and virtually. Features Andy Snitzer on sax, a fellow East Coaster. So go check out all of this new music that's coming out by so many artists. Let me tell you about our artist today. Artist, concert pianist, DJ, galactic night inventor, rock jazz, counterbop, piano turntablism. ELEW began his career as a jazz pianist known as Eric Lewis, performing alongside Wynton Marsalis, Cassandra Wilson, Jon Hendricks, Roy Hargrove, and Elvin Jones. A decade into his career, he rebranded himself as ELEW and began fusing classical piano with modern pop and rock music, generating a new genre of piano stylings he calls Rockjazz. Over the course of multiple albums, ELEW has reimagined songs by Coldplay, Michael Jackson, The Killers, Leonard Skinner, and other contemporary artists. He has performed for diverse audiences, from arena shows opening for Josh Groban, rocking America's Got Talent. You were great on that, by the way. Private soirees for Hollywood actors, innovators in the fields of science, medicine, and tech at the TED Conference, and for multiple international dignitaries and heads of state, including exclusive engagements at the White House during the administrations of Presidents Clinton and Obama. ELEW has shared his talent and musical gift with charities such as the Sasha Bruce Foundation, Musicians on Call serving Sloan Kettering Children's Hospital, the Susan G. Komen Foundation, and the Bowery Mission Homeless Shelter, to name just a few. ELEW, welcome to Making It.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
My pleasure. and it's great to see you again. And let's just start with, for me, the obvious. Galactic Night Inventor. What is that?
Well, that's the I think you saw that on Instagram, but that's
I did.
actually not the oh, you didn't. That's actually the inventor is supposed to, well, I have it on Instagram as inventor colon rock jazz counterbop piano turntablism. So these are two different things. Yes, I did invent the Galactic Night, but that's just a skit that I did during quarantine, a character that I made during quarantine, a whole different thing, an alter ego character I made, a jazz superhero character I made. But so yes, it's true. I am the inventor of that, but inventor more specifically, when I use the term, refers to my musical inventions, which are rock, jazz, counterbop, and piano turntablism.
Let's talk about counterbop. I was listening to you again this morning just to get ready for this show, and just for my sheer enjoyment as well. But you just put something up, your most recent Instagram performance was something you did at home, and it sounds like your left hand and right hand are having a conversation with each other musically.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Yeah, is it the one you just put up this morning?
Yeah, I did a 30-second clip of Killing Me Softly with his song. And then I said, well, normally I do a minute. So I gave people a clip today of 30 seconds of me doing some counterbop on rhythm changes. And the idea is that I take the principles of Bach and classical counterpoint, and I blend in the bebop element so that we get counter bop as opposed to counterpoint.
Right.
And so what makes bebop is the syncopation, among other things. That syncopation is all over the place, and it's delectable and very distinctive. And so I wanted to solve the problem of integrating counterpoint into jazz piano, because a lot of the attempts that I have heard always end up sacrificing, or shall we say, from an engineering standpoint, failing to deeply exploit the syncopation riches that are a substantial quality and character of bebop, and by virtue of that, jazz. So my point being, a lot of times then when pianists go to bring counterpoint into their work, it starts to take on a classical music quality as opposed to an American jazz quality. We're losing a lot of the landmarks and a lot of the signatures and the jive and the quotations and the references that are all through bebop. We end up not hearing a lot of that, and we end up hearing more essentially asides that would sound more like something from Ravel or French Impressionism or even German Impressionism, or maybe something from, if not Bach, Antonio Vivaldi, or then sometimes you hear something from someone like, you'd hear something from like Schoenberg or Hindemith even in today's attempts. So I wanted to grab the bull by the horns and say, you know what? Let's just go through the front door. Let's just go ahead and play two bebop tunes at the same time, and, thank me later. You know what I'm saying?
I'm thanking you now, because you're accomplishing it, and bringing, you're bringing a new audience to, and you're cracking people wide open with your music and with your enthusiasm. It's
And
beautiful.
that's the thing. That's the thing. That's the thing. At a certain point, it becomes time to. In my case, it becomes time to put up or shut up, because I've
Hmm.
had so much, rare training. Like you said, I've performed around the world with Wynton Marsalis, and there's me and Obama up there, and
Hmm.
Elvin Jones, man, at School of Music, all this stuff. Roy Hargrove, Cassandra Wilson, Jon Hendricks. So to whom much is given, much is required, and so now is the time for me to really earn it. I'm no longer some young lion or some youngster in the field that's getting rewarded based upon their promise or this or that. Now
Hmm.
I've got to be the actual genuine article in order to keep pace with a type of relevancy or something like that. So it's all coming together rather organically. It's rather interesting.
Hmm.
But yes, it's very exciting to actually be able to do this counterbop, to do this stuff. It's exactly what I got into this world for. And so here we are.
Yeah. So you come from a musical household, and that seems like you were exposed to styles and genres and sounds and just notes and vibrations as a young child. Uh, I believe your mom was a music teacher, a piano
Uh,
teacher.
yeah, my great grandmother.
Mm.
It's actually this house.
Oh.
I happen to be in this house. Um, I come from four generations of musicians.
Hmm.
My great grandmother and my great grandfather were musicians. My great grandmother essentially made this house the neighborhood music school. And so I grew up hearing kids taking piano lessons on. We've got right now we got four pianos here on the first floor. So, I heard pianos all day.
Right. They taught the
I grew
neighborhood
up
how to play.
pretty much. And so for me, it was just growing up in a circus family kind of a deal.
Hmm.
Everybody did it. So for me, it was just another chore as a kid. So, you know, nothing unusual. It wasn't until I was about fourth grade that I started to notice, wait a minute, not everybody has to do this. This isn't normal.
Right.
Not everybody has to go home and practice. What is
So
this?
as a kid, basically, you just did like every other kid that you knew that went in and out of your household. You practiced your hand and exercises, and you were learning classical music. Were you learning jazz back then as well? Were you just
No, I didn't know
strict?
jazz existed. I didn't know jazz existed until much later. I didn't become introduced to jazz until I was about maybe 12 or 13, somewhere in
Right.
there.
Well, you grew up in
So all that time,
Camden,
classical
New
jazz.
Jersey.
Yes, yes.
Well, then it seems like you kind of got shot out of a cannon then if you got exposed to jazz later, because uh, you graduated from Overbrook High School. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but you also received a full merit scholarship to the Manhattan School of Music, graduated on the dean's list, and then won the Thelonious Monk International Piano Competition. So you were already in the deep end of the pool pretty quickly, it seems to me, just from reading that. I know that it was a long journey to get there,
Yeah,
and because you're a musician, it takes time and hours and dedication and focus. But
yeah,
did it feel like you got shot out of a
yeah.
cannon?
No,
Not really.
it
You were just ready.
was a piece by piece process. It was a piece by piece. It was a piece by piece process.
Hmm.
Uh, had a powerful classical technique background, which
Right.
to this day is still, a prominent feature when you mention my name. That's probably my most distinguishing trait, at,
Hmm.
at, at worst, is technique. So, uh, yeah, I took all my formative lessons here in this house. And once I started getting advanced, then I started going across the bridge to Philadelphia to the Settlement Music School. And that's where I first started having my next level of classical music lessons, that's where I started learning the more virtuosic pieces, Beethoven, Chopin type pieces. And then that's also where I started learning jazz as well, because my mother was a little concerned that, see, my mother has a doctorate in classical flute and theory, but she was a little concerned that if I only was able to play classical music, I might have a difficult time getting a gig, especially because I'm Black. There could be a kind of a weird job problem going on there. A lot of her friends who were pianists, a couple of them dealt with that. And so she didn't want me to have that problem. And so she proactively started getting me some jazz piano lessons. And so I started with Grover Washington's keyboardist, Bill Jolly. And around this time, got my first lessons on, I got a Yamaha DX21 and I started learning Rocket, Herbie Hancock's Rocket. So whenever Herbie Hancock's Rocket came out, that's when I started taking jazz piano lessons. And that was jazz at that time. I didn't know Herbie had played with Miles or anything like that at that point. I just knew him from Rocket and the vocoder. And right around this time, my mom was about to pursue her doctorate, and she was working on a piece called Angels and Devils. The Angels part of the piece was classical music. The Devil part was jazz. And so she started working with a local trio, Ori Kane on piano, Tyrone Brown on bass, and David Gibson on drums. David Gibson came over and he heard me playing Beethoven's Waldstein Sonata on piano. And so then he said, you need to get that boy to learn how to play some jazz. And so then he recommended a teacher for me to learn how to play straight jazz, not the Mr. Magic type stuff from Bill Jolly, but straight jazz. And so then that's when I started learning from my great teacher, Gerald Price, who was a pianist with Dakota Staten, and he was a very big Errol Garner type of player. And so to this day, especially my rock type stuff has a very strong Errol Garner setup. My left hand is doing the guitar parts and the bass and the chords, and my right hand is doing this vocal kind of thing. And so that's a big core to my technical style. So then after that, I started joining the Settlement Music School combo, and that's where I met Chris McBride. That's where I met Joey DeFrancesco. That's where I met Lil John Roberts, and that's where I met Questlove, Amir Thompson at the time. And he and I became good friends until we parted ways for college, and he went to go ahead and do the Roots adventure. And so, so that was my arc from this house to New York. Somewhere in there, I got a full scholarship to Manhattan School of Music, and that was that.
It's pretty perfect. We're having this conversation with you sitting back in the home where you grew up and where all of the seeds were planted, where the foundation was poured, for your technique, which has given you the freedom to express yourself in your own very unique way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There was what were you just going to say about technique?
I just said the technique. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. The technique is seriously saving grace.
Yeah. It seems that it is created. I mean, it does for any artist in whatever their art form is. But it provides you a beautiful freedom and the ability to just throw yourself off of a musical and emotional cliff in your playing, in your approach and your openness. There's I watched your TED Talk in 2016 where you played and just demonstrated some of your approach to playing. Which was also a beautiful performance. But I read something that was a description that says, pianist Eric Lewis has developed a non-traditional method of playing the piano that combines his virtuosic keyboard technique with a big dose of controlled anarchy. And I found that kind of humorous. What do you feel like you're just, you are kind of a warrior in the way that you approach your performance. And I know that you're a fan of boxing, and we're both fans of martial arts and have done some studying in martial arts. How does that play into your approach to life and music?
Well, I think at some point when I was a lot younger, so I was a kid, I had a humongous excitement for being a musician, for being a jazz musician. Humongous excitement. I guess someone would call it passion. Something lit my fire. Something powerful came in to my emotional consciousness. Now, over time, that enthusiasm has been catastrophically tested.
Yeah.
Severely excoriated. However, there has been no force that has managed to extinguish or destroy that fire, that thing. So when it comes to martial arts and being a warrior and that sort of thing, it plays to the ferocity, the visceral, pernicious, vicious devotion to protecting us and hanging on, persevering and trusting, believing, fighting for that thing that happened to me so long ago. There's been people that have tried to talk me out of it. There's been people who have, and let me rephrase that. It's not so much that they necessarily tried to talk me out of it, but they definitely tried to talk me out of my relentless pursuit of it. I think that's one of my telltale qualities in my playing that people know me for, is just very relentless pursuit of whatever it is I'm going for.
Do you think they were trying to talk you?
People call me crazy. Bemoan the fact that I wasn't fitting their sense of orthodoxy.
Right.
They would bemoan the fact that, my pursuit of whatever it is was a character flaw, all of this stuff. And in my deepest, darkest moments, one thing that kept me going was the refusal of them all correct, that I was on a fool's errand, that my whole pursuit was vanity, all this stuff, that it was all for naught. And so that's why this time that I'm in now is high adventure.
Right.
Because I'm finding out that, hey, I was trying to create counterbop, and look, here it is. And by the way, unless I miss my guess or I'm looking around, I consider myself pretty tuned into who's doing what. I think I'm the only guy doing this from what it looks like.
That's how I see
I
it.
think
That's how I see you.
I think I doing piano turntablism, playing two songs in two different keys and two different
Right.
tempos.
Right.
It looks like I'm that guy because certainly if there was other people that were doing it at my level, I would have heard about it. I would have, oh hey man, check this
Sure.
guy out, all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
You'd find each
But
other.
it's
Mhm.
but it's silence. So that's vicious. It's vicious. It's silence. It's like, yeah, I'm not crazy. I wasn't crazy back then either.
Well, that was
I've never been.
that was my question. I mean, because you use the word crazy, and I found it peculiar to hear somebody consider that you were crazy, unless you might have thought you were crazy. I don't.
No, I was called crazy. But that refers more to, like I said, the lengths to which I would go to chase an idea.
Right. Yeah.
And also, the idea itself would not come off. It wouldn't work. It's just like a mad scientist who's constantly trying to get this formula to work. And it's constant failure after constant failure. Stuff is blowing up in his face.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts. There's damage. Far be it from me to paint the picture that I'm just this misunderstood, innocent individual kind of a thing. No. I had to learn a lot about professionalism. I had to learn a lot about understanding how ego can find its way into different things. I had to learn a lot about ambition, which is the key
Mm-hmm.
word here. The cost of ambition. The cost. I had to learn a lot. I didn't have anyone necessarily to train me in this particular area. So I had to learn through a very ground and pound, to speak of, the UFC, a ground and pound type of scenario,
Mm-hmm.
a learning curve, a survival process, a gambling, shall we say, process, because I got to keep putting all my chips on the line here. It's like, okay, now you're 20, now you're 30, now you're turning 40, it's all this sort of a kind of a thing. I've had people give up on me that I didn't want to give up on me. I've had all kinds of stuff happen. I've had the dark epiphanies, realizing, whoa, I see what they mean by crazy now. Whoa. But it's a brutal paradox. How else was ELEW to ever be? I mean, it would be different if there was 30 guys right here, right now. Oh yeah, Bob. Oh yeah, we got that. Oh yeah, sure. Commonplace, no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not. There's not another guy. The closest that comes to it is like someone like Sullivan Fortner. But my point being that what I was going for was beset on all sides with difficulty. You'd have to be crazy to try to climb that mountain.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to be crazy to try to assault that military base from that angle. It's suicide. That's where the military comes in. That's where the martial arts comes in, because the type of mental toughness, the type of perseverance, the type of boldness, the type of audacity that comes into it takes on military proportions, and history is filled with audacity.
Visionaries and dreamers and people that step into the flame to make it happen.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The fire to the limit of the law. It is the way of things. It is the way of things. It is the way of discovery. Opportunity costs, to put it simply. Opportunity cost. I want to take this opportunity to go after this thing, but how much is that going to cost me? In this case, I don't have a wife or kids. I don't have a lady.
Do you see that there might be room for that soon or now?
Maybe not soon.
Okay.
I'm just now learning how to get to my playing.
Right.
I'm just now figuring it out. It's taken all this. I've had to go through all types of heartbreak. I've had to go through. I'm on the heels of it now. I had to make a huge sacrifice to try to do this thing, but that's the cost. But you talk to Navy SEALs, you talk to different people in extreme occupations, or people who go to the extreme in occupations. It can be that way. It can be that way. It's not always that way. Sometimes, if you have the right combination of people, then there's those that are positioned and able to go that length with you.
Right. That align with you and your vision, right, and your understanding. Exactly. Right.
Who can tolerate the difficulty, or who can counteract it. But anyway, currently, this is my situation. And it's a very paradoxical thing, because for all of the enthusiasm and the brilliancy of it and the amazing things that are about to transpire, I still have this sadness in my heart for, the relationship I had to put on the altar and sacrifice for this God, for this ambition. And so it is. And so when it comes to being called crazy and stuff like that, that all factors into the outside perspective. People on the outside looking in. Yeah. You know what? For a person that wants to have a particular type of life, for a person who only wants to go to a certain length or extreme, I would look crazy to them. And more importantly, they themselves would be crazy to try to do what I'm doing. Ever since I left home, I've been a ninja. I've been a lone warrior. I've been a Ronin, a masterless samurai. I've been on a mission to get here. I could care less about the prestige and the money and the awards and who gets this and that. It's all been about a Bushido type of samurai mission to prove something, to be what I've chosen to be. An innovator, a guy who brings a whole nother technique to the music. There's space in the piano.
Into the instrument.
For the instrument. Look, I'm inspired by Coltrane, what he did. He brought the soprano sax to it, and the India techniques and the rhythms. And I toured with Elvin for 2 years. So, that's been my mission, to bring in a completely new or innovative method. And counterbop is one of those. Piano turntablism is another one of those. All I'm doing is taking the traditions of Art Tatum and Errol Garner and Bud Powell and bringing it to the modern day. Bud Powell didn't figure out bop. Art Tatum did not either. That's where I come in. I'm the missing link between that stride piano and that bebop, where the left hand started to disappear,
Right.
Piano turntablism, that's a technique that comes from the Art Tatum world, where you're playing two different songs at the same time. That's the highest level. That's why I started learning how to be a DJ. I mean, for other reasons too. I loved the party and energy and environment, but also I saw possibilities with the technique of it and how to get closer to the Art Tatum dream by being able to play those two songs at the same time. And now I'm doing it. But it's taken all sorts of mental exploration, emotional exploration. I mean, what makes me different from everybody else who kind of can get to a little bit of it, but then they got to stop? What makes me different from the guys, even before all this, just my physical savagery to be at the instrument, to play rock jazz was physically savage. And to have armor on at the same time. It was
Right.
brutal.
Yeah.
So
Right. And you attack the piano. You caress it as well, but you also attack it. When I was watching and listening to you play up close, I was waiting for you to break strings. I would imagine that has happened to you because it seems like it would be impossible not to.
well, yeah, that's my relationship with piano tuners is similar to James Bond's relationship with his sailors. Because
Right.
yeah, at a certain point, I was pretty notorious for breaking strings. So
Yeah.
I first started on the ELEW journey. I
Mhm.
definitely was a little notorious for beating up pianos. I don't have that problem now. But see, the size of my ambition, the size of what I envisioned was possible on the instrument, essentially had not been laid out before.
Right.
So I had to go through I had to go through the pioneering process. And that ain't pretty. I had to build it from the ground up, you know? So I had to go through all of the transitional forms.
Mhm.
I had to go through like, okay, I'm standing up. My back is on fire. My quadriceps and legs are on fire. I'm bleeding from my wrists. My arms are heavy from the heavy armor that I'm wearing.
Right. This is all literal too. Everything that you're saying is just so our audience knows if they haven't seen you play. These are real, literal things.
Yeah, I'm in my mind, okay, I'm playing Mr. Brightside by the Killers. I'm playing Smells Like Teen Spirit. Okay,
Mhm.
I've got, the sound system is so now I've got to pump out more energy in my left hand because that's what the driving force is. Do 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 do. And then on the right hand, I'm playing the melody. I'm going out of my head and it feels just fine. Gotta be down because I want it all. It started out with a kiss. How could it end up like this? How could it end up like this? It was only a kiss. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I'm
Yeah.
pumping those surfer lyrics at that fast tempo, do 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 do, and I'm getting my energy across to the audience because the music is designed for that.
Mhm.
However, it does take a toll on the piano, and then also
On you.
it sound very good on the bootlegs.
Right. Right.
But like I said, it was a heavy, heavy technical curve that I had to transcend. And it took me years to be able to execute this rock and sound
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good at it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously I sounded good, but to really have it polished up and beautiful so that it matched, a connoisseur's, music critic standards, like a classical music critic standards, or something along those lines. It took a while for me to polish that style up and get that thing going because it's so muscular
Mhm.
eccentric.
Right.
There's so much that's involved with it, which is why, again, I was the only one doing it. I mean, there is no other
Mhm.
guy standing up with armor, going through all that pain to bring across that music. But that's what I felt about it. That
Mhm.
music was saving my life. That music was saving my ambitional life
Mhm.
because
Right.
it gave me freedom. It gave me this other genre, this other way to go about expressing this energy inside of me. Like I told you, that thing inside of me,
Mhm.
that fire, that inner urge. And, but I didn't learn it in school. I had to learn it by ear.
Right. That's not in any book or in any class that anybody has ever taught.
And that's why, it gets looked down upon by educated, musicians,
Okay, I see. Yeah.
the rock
That's
side of things.
that is so limited thinking, but I see why they might react that way.
Sure.
But your story and your journey, I just want to share something really quick with you of another story that parallels your life. I had the pleasure of meeting and having a conversation with Dr. Linda Spilker, who works for NASA at JPL. She was one of the two key lead scientists for the Cassini project. And it was a beautiful conversation. I'll send you a link another time so you can listen to it. But her point of view is that science and music, art, they're the same. Yeah, and that her field is very, she said, what I do is similar to what you do. It's like writing a composition. It's like improvising something. And her story was that when they launched the Cassini project, it was a 20-year long project. But when they actually launched the mission, they still hadn't figured out the technology. They started the ride, and then they had that spaceship was, I believe it took a year, maybe 2 years to get, besides all the pre-development, to get to Saturn to start photographing it. So they had that year period of time while the ship has already left the the port. That they're flying. They have millions, billions of dollars behind them, and now they're having to figure out how to make it work. They're still writing code, figuring out, inventing new technologies for photographs and sending digital images, everything that you're talking about. So there is nothing crazy about what you've been doing from my perspective.
Sure. But I mean, again, this all gets back into emotional toughness because,
sure. Oh, yeah.
Like they say, the hardest fight to win is a street fight.
Mm-hmm. Right, because they play fair. There's no technique in.
There's no rules.
Yeah, right.
So if you try to do normal combat systems against a street fight situation, you really better know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's wide open. So sure, if someone's willing to stop and talk about launching a vehicle to Saturn, that's a sophisticated comeback you just came there with. That's that's sophisticated. The average person, the average musician, they've got other pressures that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking about, well, you're playing all that crazy stuff, but you're making me look bad. I only want things to sound a certain way, or
mm-hmm.
The audience likes it, but
sure.
This or that, or in my case, I never got a major record deal. Right.
Well, didn't you have a deal and then you lost it, or
No,
not even?
Never.
Okay. I don't know that you missed out on anything, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
In one sense, yes, but in another sense, it was very painful for me because I thought that was part of my dream. I thought that was part of what was supposed to happen. I mean, I had been around record executives and stuff like that. I had done all these different things.
Yeah.
Essentially was rejected. But I had a lot of immaturities going on as well.
Mm-hmm.
See? And my ambitions, it's kind of like that. What's the thing of not monkey see, monkey do? My eyes are bigger than my stomach kind of a thing.
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah, you see all this stuff, but it wasn't until I started running a business from an entrepreneurial standpoint that I began to understand how unfit I was to be a representative for some of these companies, shall we say.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's part of it. I could see how, like I said, I'm just now getting to the point where I've got what you could call a polished package in the sense of, I've got counterbop, I've got piano turntables, and Rockjazz, all this stuff I've got down to a technical science so that I can, post these ELEW clips and it's like, boom. That's clear and obvious. He's playing the bass lines. He's doing all this. It's out there for your evaluation, you see. I did not have my act that together. I thought I had my act together, But it wasn't until recently that I mean, quarantine basically, that I really was able to like start really getting my act together. And so looking back, you know, I did a ground and pound type of situation here. You know, I got through the position, I got through the wall. Was it pretty? No. Was it cool? Yeah, it was. I had some great moments. But
it was real. It was authentic.
There's a thing called the truth, though. There's a thing called the truth. And as they say, the truth will stand even if the heavens fall, right? So my technical truth was not as true as it needed to be. Now one could say I'm the truth.
Right.
Because it's there for you to hear on Instagram every day, on YouTube, all the, you know, you can hear the ELEW clips and it's like, yeah, that's Art Tatum he's playing right there. Go ahead and play it again. You can play it all day if you want.
Yeah.
It's a historical record. Yeah. Right. He's playing Jamaica Funk in his left hand, and in his right hand, he's playing Reminisce by Pete Rock. Yeah. That's right there. You know, so now that movie, the Nicolas Cage movie, The Lord of War, where he was talking about, you know, my wealth finally started to catch up with my lies about my wealth. So in this case, technical wealth, you know, my technical ability finally has caught up with and even exceeded my lies about my technical ability, or my, you know, as Al Pacino once, I had a chance to hang out with Al Pacino, and the word that he uses that's really cool is aspiration.
Yeah.
That's so I like to look between aspiration and ambition. I think those two words encapsulate everything that an artist has, everything that an artist is going to deal with. Because on the one side, you have aspiration, which refers to, okay, you're aspiring to this thing versus you're executing this thing. If you're aspiring to a thing, it's like, okay, you want to be able to do that. You're trying to do that. You're aspiring to do that versus doing it, actually executing, right? However, when you say aspiration, it's a loving word because you understand the loving quality of it. The person aspires to it. Okay, that's innocent. That's fine. We're going to, you know, give credit where credit's due. That is noble to aspire to whatever thing you're trying to do. That's fine. There is a difference between aspiring to a thing and executing a thing. So that's number one. On the ambition side, okay, ambition has to do with that core vision of where one wants to ultimately be positionally. Now, ambition becomes the source of deep choices. That's where relationships fall apart, because there's two different ambitions going on, or irreconcilable ambitions going on. So that's where, between the two of those things, that's where the average person will say, oh, this guy's crazy or whatever, because they're looking at, okay, he looks like he's aspiring to play mega fast or mega amazing right now. But he's not pulling it off. But he won't stop trying. So he keeps aspiring to it. And then the ambition behind that is the reason he won't quit. He won't stop, because he's got this ambition he won't let go of. So the aspiration,
And then the awareness or the understanding of what's required to achieve greatness.
That's the thing. You know, there's the saying, fake it till it's real. That's actually not so far off. It's kind of like when you're pulling out your teeth as a kid, when you're trying to, you know, pull out your first teeth and all that.
Right.
It's like, okay, you've got a loose tooth. I mean, I was one of those kids that was like, you know, standing for hours, you know, screwing around with this tooth. And then
Right.
when it finally came out, it was like, dun, 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 dun. Like, Mom, look. Wow. So another example is my great grandmother had a garden in the backyard, and I'll never forget. I used to love to she'd have me pull the weeds out and stuff. But then once there was this humongous weed, and we were back there for a long time. I was working on that weed, trying to get that thing out. And I remember when it finally like popped and came up out of the ground, and I landed on my butt.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, wow. And I saw how deep and long that root was and how far
tenacious. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, And so I feel that way now, where it's like it creates a lot of where I used to have a sense of animosity towards those that would call me crazy and stuff like that, or any of these issues and stuff interpersonally, or animosity towards the business, animosity towards labels or whatever. I've had to, I have a whole different take on all that now, because I can actually see now that I can actually do counterbop, now that I can actually do piano turntablism, now that I can actually DJ powerfully on turntables or the piano.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I can play the rock smooth, like a rock star, like a guitar player, now that all these techniques are at that getting polished kind of phase now I'm like, wow, okay. I see what was required to get to that word you just mentioned, required.
Mm-hmm.
I see what was required, and I see where I fell short. I see how I satisfied some of the requirements, and I had my big moment with the TED Talks, America's Got Talent. I had a nice little ride there. I had a nice little wave there, but then
President Obama, President Clinton.
Precisely, all that. Yeah. I had that nice little wave, but this quarantine situation that just happened, this whole little situation really tested my mettle. It really was the crucible.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say I came out the other side hardcore, even better.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But
I do.
A heavy humility was learned during that process. A heavy humility about realizing what it is that I have asked of people. I was thinking about record labels and, stuff like that as something to receive. I never looked at it from the perspective of what I was giving to them.
Sure.
How can I help them? Because any team that I do now, that's what it's about. When I'm directing a film, I'm thinking about the crew. I'm thinking about the actors. I'm thinking about, okay, what's everybody really good at? And how can I help make your job easier? How can I don't want you to put it I don't want you doing stuff that isn't really what you want to be doing. Like your favorite thing. I want you to do your favorite thing because that's where I get to enjoy your genius, your brilliance. So I'll write up my own storyboards. I'll draw the whole thing. I don't want my director of photography to, have to be, dealing with, well, I kind of think I want to have it here and he's trying to move the camera here. Well, no, let's do it. We've already walked, for my world, we've already walked the scene. Here's scene 1. See it? Okay. Here's scene 2. I've drawn the whole movie out. Now they can relax and get into their craft. Now they can correct me and say, okay, well, I see what you're going for with this shot. For us to do that, we kind of got to do it. You know what I'm saying? We can get into those kinds of conversations. Sure. But similarly, I did not approach the music in that way. I thought I was, but now I really see what was needed from me. But at the same, like I said, it's so paradoxical in my case because I was going for something that has never been done. Counterbop, piano turntablism, DJing like this, and all the other stuff that's going to be revealed shortly. for me to ask a record label to go down that rabbit hole with me is a humongous ask. And what
you've
was I
also
giving them in return?
but you've also surpassed the need or the value. You've created and nurtured and grown your own audience through giving it away has come back to you tenfold, 1,000-fold.
Right.
And that speaks the truth. That's where the truth is as well. The response to you being your authentic self. Of course it does.
Right.
Great things take.
It's an exciting time.
It is, yes.
It's an exciting time.
It is.
It's an exciting time because, we're in this amazing flux thing where it's like, okay, you got access to the same technology that any label has access to. What, you want to go to a $1 million studio? Well, go ahead.
Wow.
You want the top software? Grab it. You want to mess with computer technology? You were talking about the Galactic Night. Well, yeah, I learned coding. I learned computer animation. I made that card. I made my cartoon. I made my character.
I'm not surprised.
Go ahead.
Right. Why am I not?
So it's an amazing time. The whole payola situation with the vinyl, Apple broke the back of that whole cartel. The whole which club is going to spin your record? Oh, well, Warner Brothers, all their DJs spin these records at that club, or these people run that radio station. They're going to make sure this gets the spins, and that whole system. It's not what it was at all. So now we're in a multiverse for the independents. This is an multiverse. So now what's amazing about it is that it's a question of, it's back to the musician. Are you lazy? Have you ever danced with the devil by the pale moonlight? Do you have a fire in your gut? Because if you want to make your music, make your music. You have whatever tools are required to get it as perfect as you want. Ego, you want to be known around the world? Well, okay. You have the internet. Go ahead.
Earn it.
That's what's amazing now. The whole power of rejection has been short-circuited in some kind of way. It's like, you could previously be crushed by rejection. You could be crushed.
Let me ask you a personal question about that. And you don't have to answer this, but it's something I've read just from somewhere.
I'll answer all your questions.
I'll just read this. There have definitely been some psychological bumps that were crucial in overcoming. This is in your words, supposedly. I suffered from intense panic attacks and depression, which manifested themselves in dramatic fashion in 1998. It took years of work to master my energies and to learn to ride my inner dragon. And deep respect to you for moving through that. I know that as everybody does in life, you've experienced success, but as I read also, as your career progressed or failed to, from a business perspective, you've been talking about business, you found that a lot of contemporary rock music also spoke to you deeply. So I'm curious, before I invite some of our audience members just to get involved in our conversation, and Dr. Lisa, who's here with us, our moderator, what do the words success and failure mean to you? Or do they not even? It's not even relevant anymore because you're just moving forward with a clear intention and vision.
I mean, if you're talking to me,
you.
As far as success and failure, I don't have a retirement. I don't have a pension kind of a situation. I'm not a school teacher like my mother, or I don't have a job like that. So I need to have some level of success so that I can have something for my years of being decrepit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's real.
So the euphemisms of success and failure, I only can relate to those terms from an engineering standpoint. Engineering success means when you sit down on the chair, it works. engineering fail means when you ride the vehicle, it breaks down. That's an engineering fail. So it's purely technical for me.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the subjective element, that has an immaturity about it, because the vagaries of the definition move themselves away from a mathematical concision, and the concision and the technical precision of success and failure from an engineering standpoint pretty much speak to even the more euphemistic insinuations of the terms. Because if something works from a technical perspective, then that means the accompanying business that goes along with it should be working too. If it fails to, that's because there was a technical fail in that. Like, for instance, like I said, we are in a oil well, we're in a gold mine of creative possibilities.
Yes, I agree with you.
So let's say you create something, but then you decide that it's not important enough to you to get a trademark on your IP, on your intellectual property. That's a fail. That's an engineering fail. That's a technical fail. That's a fail. You don't, so while you might have been successful in the sense that, okay, I created something different and new, but then you didn't trademark it. You didn't protect it.
Yeah.
So then when someone scoops it and is getting paid off of it and all that stuff, does that make you a failure? No, you did create it. However, you decided that for some reason it wasn't important enough to protect your IP.
Right.
So that's a technical thing. You can get it done technically. Okay, well, what's it going to cost? Well, you might have to pay your lawyer $2,000, say, to fully secure your IP. Well, where are you going to get the $2,000 from? Okay, well, now you got to, drink muddy water and eat rice or spaghetti for 6 months to get that money together, say.
Right, you go through your ramen period, right?
Then
Just to make it happen.
You get your money, and then you get your trademark down, and now, boom, you've paid those dues. You now have a story to tell about what you went through to trademark your thing. And then when your IP does what it's supposed to do because you're a genius, now you have your monetary instruments, which is all part of engineering. Now they're not going to fail. So as far as I'm concerned, success and failure become questions of engineering, technical engineering. And I mean, I've never thought about this question. I mean, I'm improvising with the question, but as I think about it more and more, I mean, I actually don't see where it stops being about engineering at some point, even if we're talking about bioengineering. Like, for me, I can determine success and failure if, I'm trying to play the bass line with my pinky and the piano part with my fifth finger in my left hand, and then I go to put the melody line with it on top, and then something collapses. Well, that's an engineering fail.
That's part of your interest in neuroanatomical study as well, correct?
Yeah. It's all engineering. It's all coding. It's all construction. Because at a certain point, by the way, speaking of crazy, in order to avoid going insane, actually, at some point, the vagaries have to come out.
What do you mean by that?
The vagaries, and that, what the person described as control anarchy.
Right.
That's what their radar is picking up on. Yes, mental traffic is all over the place. And so you have to have ways to deal with that. But this is why we use constructs like numbers. This is why when you say success and fail, instead of it being a rabbit hole of me talking about thoughts and feelings, with a moment of processing, I'm like, well, I go to engineering, technical engineering. That, whether we're talking micro success and micro failure, whether we're talking about a hybridization, because someone could be successful at this part, like you created something, but then you decided not to protect it. So then it has a technical fail to accrue you money for your retirement. But if maybe that doesn't mean anything to you either. Okay. So then when we start talking about the scoreboard, there's a analysis that we can do technically, and then we can go into an evaluation of, is it humanly meaningful to the subject at this particular time? Because, maybe it doesn't mean anything to you when you're 20 years old, but when you're 80 years old, maybe it would mean something to you. Maybe the person that had the patents on cotton, or whatever, maybe it didn't mean, well, better yet, Tetris is a perfect example. Game Tetris. The game Tetris was made by a Russian engineer. What was he? He was a technical engineer, and he came up with the game Tetris just for fun in Russia, and sold it for a pittance. Tetris,
right?
Tetris. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I hear you.
That's how it is. So, and this guy was a technical engineer. So, again, when we start to try to analyze human value systems and stuff of that nature, realistically, you can probably break that down to neurotechnical stuff too, because you start to get into a person's upbringing, you start to get into their relationship with existentiality, phenomenology, how do they value existence or not? Other people, are they sociopathic? Are they philanthropic? Are they altruistic? I mean, so it all can be broken down, right? This is why a lot of times when more colloquial phrases come up or euphemistic phrases come up, I go into like this heavy technical place, because actually,
I can see why.
It's there.
Right.
Otherwise, you could tempt your own sanity, because if you refuse to go into a technical place, you could find yourself inside of a gumbo of craziness.
One of the things that you told me about you earlier is that you are a hiker and a swimmer, and I can see now. Physically that made sense to me, but just spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, like that's a great way for you just to get your brain to just kind of turn it down a notch, because you have a big brain. You are really intelligent, but you also understand the value, or you gravitate towards the value of just quieting yourself down by doing physical things like hiking, swimming.
Well, I generally like silence in general. I generally like solitude. I function well in solitude and aloneness. I grew up in this house without any brothers and sisters, so I'm used to big spaces and aloneness. And when it comes to stuff like hiking brutal mountains or, swimming for miles, I get into
the solitude.
I get into a state of
yes.
I get into a state of execution. I get into a state of tenacity. I get into a state of naked viciousness at the task. It's pure engagement with the terrain. And it becomes the terrain starts to talk to me. It starts to teach me, because wow, suddenly that incline, that gradient is really assaulting me today. It's really putting pressure upon my respiration. I'm like, man, okay. The mountain, it's so beautiful in its stoic, immovable nature. It has no bias with it.
Right. Yes.
It's so fair. It cannot be cajoled. It cannot be intimidated.
Yeah.
It cannot be reasoned with.
Yeah, you can't charm your way out of nature.
However, no, but it also won't cheat you. It won't cheat you, but it doesn't give you credit for yesterday's work, but it won't cheat you. It's fantastic. Right. The water is the same way. Now, I find this powerful because there's so many character building things to aspire to with these two forces. It really does everything from check my ego, it does everything to educate my ambitions. Mm-hmm. It does everything to remind me of consistencies. Mm-hmm. If I end up not being able to hike or swim for a while, when I go back, my performance has diminished and there's no sympathy.
Right.
So it reminds me, wow, that's just like the business.
Yeah.
Okay. I just created a genius ELEW clip playing amazing stuff. I mean, for Christ's sake, I'm playing Sting. I'm playing Message in a Bottle in my left hand. I'm playing Gilligan's Island on top of Message in a Bottle. Now I'm playing A Tribe Called Quest on top of that.
Yeah.
Now I'm playing Sting underneath of Tribe Called Quest. Oh, that's cool. That's good for today's clip. What you got for tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And next day, the onslaught. There's no sympathy, but it's amazing. But once I got into the understanding and the groove, it's just like that terrain. It's like, wow, that was amazingly difficult. I'm on a mountain. This is hard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next step. Cool. Next step. Come on. Yeah. But when I get back home and I go to do an ELEW clip and it's like, okay, I have to play perfectly and amazingly for 1 minute. Mm-hmm. Go for it. It took me 11 hours to get my first ELEW clip done. It was when Chick Corea passed away and I wanted to do a tribute to him. I played Matrix. Yeah. It took me 11 hours to play it through perfectly once.
Wow.
Satisfactorily. 11. It took all day.
Yeah.
So the ELEW clips have been an evolution of pain. Mm-hmm. Sitting there, I go through emotional hardship because suddenly all my ego gets smacked. It's like, I thought this was easy. I would be looking at other artists that would be putting out their little clips, their version of their clips and all that, and thinking, oh man, I don't have to go through all that, whatever, when I started trying to do it, suddenly I realized, yes, you're a big dumb jerk and you're not as good as you think you are. Let's just go ahead and you're a big dumb jerk, as good as you think you are, Eric. Okay.
I love your beautiful mind, Ethan. Just really enjoying this conversation. Can we take a minute to...
And then from that little there, it's like, okay, all right. I'm a big dumb jerk and I'm not as good as I think I am. We're not done. Now I got to discover just how not good I am. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so go ahead. Play, you play Mercy, Mercy, Mercy perfect for a minute. Yeah. That's worth sharing. Mm-hmm. So this whole ELEW clips process has been another crucible, an incredibly character building thing. But I guess if I had any kind of mutant power, I guess I'm like Wolverine. I'm able to heal from any wound and just absorb and, just get myself up to the next occasion and just, build and get there.
Man, I'll take that superpower. That's so really useful. Yeah. Let's just take a minute and open up for any questions and comments for Dr. Lisa. Hi, it's great to see you and hear you.
This has been mind blowing. Like seriously, like I almost want to be on camera just so you can see the look on my face because it keeps changing from I'm in awe to I'm trying to keep up to oh my God, I could just sit here and listen to him Thank you for this. And ELEW, I'm in love with you now. I have a question, and I'm almost scared to ask the question because I'm not even sure I understand my question, but I'm hoping you understand the question. So I have been, some time back, I learned about Professor Philip Ewell and his theory on race and how it plays into music and higher education and universities. And his whole concept is that there is a white framework to music, and how classical music is the epitome of all things musical. And he's challenging people to think about all the other music from all other parts of the world, and not just this European, Eurocentric music that has been put at the pinnacle. So you have thoughts on that? Because when I started listening to you, I'm like, this is what he's talking about. The beauty of music and the whole concept of music is that it's coming from everywhere. There isn't one group of people that have the lockdown on this is the music that all other music should be considered. This is the standard. And so with you infusing all these different styles of music that predated what we would have even known as classical music stole from all these other things that came before it, but we still settled on this Eurocentric perspective of the epitome of music must be classical. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts is that first and foremost, I mean, we know from an anthropological truth, scientific fact is that life started in Africa, human life, right? So we've got eons of primordial millennial history that has happened. There was musical systems way back then. You know what I'm saying? Even if people got around and banged some trees or some rocks together, or created their proto-linguistics and stuff like that. I mean, the birds. If you wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, you can hear a symphony of birds. So sounds and sound productions and organization of sounds and stuff like that are just as natural as the organization of communication sounds and things of that nature. There's just terrains. With regards to
I'm so pissed right now.
The traditions of European classical music and that sort of thing, going back to, say, Gregorian chant, which is, I think, one of the first organizations, one of the foundations of European classical music, if I'm not mistaken, is Gregorian chant. That's about as far back as they kind of start with Gregorian chant, which matches up because one of the primary uses of music has been religious, across tribes, across religions and nations and stuff like that, because of its sort of mystical nature. But it also has other functions too. Anyway. When it comes to traditions, that's all they are. So that's the key point. We're talking about European classical music. We're talking about a tradition. And are there other countries in the world besides Europe? Yes. Do they have music? Yes. They have traditions. So we could go to ancient China. They've got a deep tradition of musical systems that have nothing to do with European systems. We can go to India, and we're going to encounter systems that are even an order of magnitude more complicated than the European systems, because the instruments that they use have an order of magnitude more tone centers, microtonalism, the rhythms, all of that. So even Africa. I mean, somebody has here. I'm hearing
I'm
myself
hearing myself in an echo.
I am too.
I am too.
That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Should I mute my mic? I don't know. Anyway,
We're good
I
now.
hear it now. So, of course, multiple countries in Africa. It's not Africa is a continent,
Right. Thank you. For
so
that.
there's multiple countries within Africa that have systems. The Tigris-Euphrates River Valley, where the Fertile Crescent was, they had a whole set of systems for their music. Obviously, the Greeks had their systems. That's where we get the name of the modes that are spoken about in European music: Aeolian, Dorian, Locrian. Those are Greek words. But you go down to Ethiopia, you go down to Nigeria, Cameroon. I mean, there's tons of deep, ancient musical systems, especially with the drums
and traditions.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Traditions that are so powerful and vibrant that they resonate through the European upper structures of what we hear today. The pop music that we hear today, especially hip hop, let alone jazz, what makes the stuff crack is Africa. Africa is there. Ancient Africa, deep Black Africa is all through there. And and for the pop music that is a little gentrified, pop hip hop, it's just Africa light.
It's light, right?
It's still Africa.
Light.
You know what I'm
saying?
Yeah.
I knew he wasn't going to have
but
I knew you weren't going to have a problem addressing the question. I was more concerned that I would be able to ask it without having to read 2 paragraphs of Professor Lewis's professor's stuff. Now, the other thing is, I want that wallpaper behind you. I want the wallpaper,
right.
and we have someone else up with a question too.
Actually, it's my wife Melanie is just joined us on stage from the UK. Hey, Melanie, how you doing over there on the other side of the pond?
What's up, y'all? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so it's 11:30 at night here, and your girl has an 8 a.m. lobby call. So this is a sacrifice. Hey, ELEW.
Hey.
You're my hero. Hey, I'm so happy we got to hear you play a few weeks ago. It was just like the blood in our veins. It was really, you are so magnificent. And I think that part of it is because you really want to be, and you know that you are. There are so many things I want to say to you, but thank you for doing this for all of us to tap into your specialness. Your mind is like a rushing river, and we're just sort of sitting on the banks holding onto a rock. And you're like in the river. You kind of are the river, but that's more of a yoga analogy. But anyway, I kind of don't know where to start. I'm kind of like feeling like Lisa, even though I've been following you on Instagram for a few months, and I thank you, my friend Michael Mishaw, for turning me on to you. I'm fascinated by your military analogies as you apply them to the sacrifice of your calling. I'm fascinated by the audacity of your expression, your epiphanies, your survival process, and how you shape it. A lot of what you are saying remind me very much of Kurt Vonnegut. If you've ever read Slaughterhouse-Five or Player Piano or Breakfast of Champions, he rejected so much of what makes a story. And I think there's something to you and him. The line of your story flows somewhere in between your beginning and your end. And it's almost like your narrative, you're figuring it. It's like you're writing the story as it's being told to you. Do you ever feel like that when you play? Do you ever feel like you're basically taking dictation? Because that's what it feels like to me when I hear you. And I wonder if you ever consider your experiences as having any distance between when you lived it and when you're telling it or playing it I guess that's my question. I'm like, Lisa, I don't even know what I'm saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So I love you. God bless you, and I'm just gonna listen.
Thanks, Melanie.
I have at one point I used to say that this was like taking dictation. I don't feel that way anymore. I have more of a sense of giving. I'm giving the information.
Right.
I'm providing. I'm a content provider.
Yes.
So it's less of a passive thing and more of a provider scenario. Sometimes I get ideas or I make connections in my mind and think, oh, that's a nice opportunity or a possibility. Again, though, I consider things from the perspective of providing content, because ever since I got into this whole ELEW Instagram clip thing, the ELEW clips thing, the pressure is on for the daily content. And now I've kind of like gotten a taste for it. So now I'm just providing content, and I rationalize everything that I see from other people as providing content. And so it has radically shaped and changed my consciousness. So, I mean, all the hours and the repetitions to try to get these clips to sound right, at a certain point, things just start to break away and new phases come in and new understandings come in. It's all happening fast because of the pace of the output. There's not much time. It's just like in war. There was no time to grieve or celebrate because we had to keep moving. So, we're doing amazing things. Wow. It would be frightening if I had time to process what we're doing. There's just no time.
Right.
So that's where I'm at now. I don't have time to receive dictation. I'm providing. I'm digging in. What can I provide? What can I provide? I got to give more. The ears are hungry. Internet is hungry. It's time for the daily feeding. The idea of genius and the idea of getting things just so, I think I want to do the operational tempo that I've taken on is so brisk that I'm like, okay, got to learn this. Okay, let's just get this, absorb, learn it, learn, discover, learn, execute. Okay, press record. Okay, you messed it up. Stop, press record. Do it again. Stop, press record. Learn, stop, learn. Okay, press record. Don't mess up. You messed up. Okay, stop, press record. You know what I'm saying? So there's just no time. The process is just different than the receiving dictation space. But but I do get ideas and notice ideas. But the level of technique that is demanded of me now, the level of perfection and expertise that's demanded of me now. I don't have time to stop and smell the roses at some level. It's like, oh yeah, wow, that was historic. Okay, cool. Oh, wow, that was perfection. Wow, okay, let's keep it moving.
Well, I think that's where the militaristic analogy comes in, because you just keep marching.
Yes.
So we thank you. We thank you. We support you. We love you very much. Yeah, I know. It's great. Your greatness is a pleasure to behold.
Also, humility. There's another angle, by the way, is that, I've been thinking this a lot too. When I sit down in a chair, like this comfy chair, there was somebody who had to engineer this. and they had to engineer it perfectly and get it on the marketplace. So just because I'm doing something on piano doesn't exempt me from ergonomic realities. That's the thing that's so amazing about today's age. For me, when I flip on TikTok, I'm looking at a guy jumping off of a cliff with a wingsuit on. I then flip it, and now there's a guy hanging out with a hyena and a lion.
Mm-hmm.
I then flip it, and here's a kid who's doing, aerial flips and tricks in the air like he's a ninja, like amazing. And that's just today's clip. So everybody's pumping out this content. There's amazing people in the world, and the space for ego, the space for complacency has radically been changed. I mean, the game is afoot. It's a heck of a game to get into, and it is amazing.
Yeah, priorities have shifted.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that.
Your humility, and I appreciate your desire for humility and all that, but what you're doing is not jumping off you are jumping off a cliff, but you're not standing there with a monkey and a bunch of juggling balls. Come on. You're reinventing the game. And that's I appreciate that you were humble about it, but this is beyond TikTok. I'm just saying. I appreciate
Please, thank you.
Someone's got to say it. So I'm just saying. Yeah. I do.
From the perspective that when it comes to production and output, it's just like Terry with this show. Mm-hmm. Okay, today is ELEW Day, but then what's next? Okay, great. That's a great little cast. Cool, man. What else you got?
Right.
And then what's after that? So it is what it is, and so it's very paradoxical from every level. There's, why I bring up TikTok and that space is because there's some people like me sitting in this chair. It's like, this is a comfy chair. I like this chair. Okay, I'm hungry. I want to, go have a taco or something. Cool. For another person, it's like, man, wait a minute. Do you understand the craftsmanship that was in this chair? The structural design? Well, I'm personally only appreciating it to a certain depth, right? Another person could appreciate my piano playing to a certain depth and be like, oh yeah, he's talented. I get that a lot. Yeah, he's talented. Okay,
but there's a beauty in that. There's a beauty in that because we watched you play. Yep. We watched the audience take it in to receive the gift that you were giving, as you say, and that audience was not filled with musicians. It was filled with people, humanity.
Yeah.
Every shape, size, color. And they were all responding to you from their experience, receiving the gift that you were providing, and with your intention set on that. And it was great because what you do is highly technical, but it was not exclusive. It wasn't just because I went to music school as well, or Melanie's professional, singer, that we get it and nobody else does. Everybody got it because it's so visceral. It's so, I keep going back to the word authentic, and the technique frees you to create and share that experience. The technique is phenomenal, as I know that you because you honor it in a warrior way. You feed it, you take care of it, you walk it and practice it, and and you do all the things for that. The relationship that you have with technique is what it has to be in order to achieve what you are aspiring, the word that you keep bringing up, to use. But the beauty is it's not, is especially coming from a jazz world, a straight ahead jazz world, and you walking away from the traditional, career that you were headed towards. That can be a very exclusive club. And it's interesting to me that, and it's kind of magnificent to me, and especially in having this conversation and getting to know you, is that you walking towards the new styles that you are creating, that it becomes more inclusive. It's this path that nobody has ever walked down before, that you are inventing and discovering and creating and pushing the envelope on constantly, is so beautifully inclusive, much more than anything else that you've ever done. So it's a really clear road to be on, in that way, because I know you see and feel the response. I mean, you eat it up, you chew it up, and they eat it up, and it's that live performance aspect that you have, that we are, those of us who are performers, have the great joy of experiencing. It's very circular, but it's kind of extraordinary, don't you think, that what you're doing that is so, it's not dangerous, but it's just so unexplored territory. It's the new world. You're getting on the ship. Yeah.
It's just
people aren't sure if the world's flat or round.
Well, one thing that I get a kick out of is the fact that everybody knows what a DJ is. People can hear two different things at the same time and all that. So all I'm doing is filling the gap.
Yeah.
It's like, it took somebody just relentless enough to transcend the barrier. So that it's like,
and the instrument.
I'm giving you the DJ experience through a piano.
Right.
You're hearing a Michael Jackson soon slowly come in while we're still playing Mary J. Blige over here.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, that's being done physically, analog, not digitally. What the heck? So we're at once giving people the familiar, but doing it in a way that's extraordinary, yet the thing itself isn't extraordinary necessarily in one sense, which makes it even more extraordinary, because it's like, wow, So it's just multiple paradoxes all clumped.
Why don't I get to my 3 closing questions that I ask all of my guests, and then you can have final thoughts and words.
Okay.
My first is, and I'm only asking you this because it's become the tradition of the show, but I already feel like you've answered all of these questions and then some, but I'm still going to ask. Since this show is called Making It, what does making it mean to you, both personally and professionally?
I mean, it gets back to what I said with the engineering concision of success and failure. Like I said, I have to figure out my retirement. I gotta, when I'm decrepit, I need to have a source of income, period.
And well, let's get you a good money manager. For real.
Well, I got one. I'm just saying that my point is, when you're asking me the question, what is making it?
Yeah.
Making it means that I'm handling my business.
Yes.
That's making it. So I'm making it. For those who, someone could say, oh, this guy made it. Okay. So then that means that they are in a state of security financially. Because that's the most objective definition I can come up with. And that's the most face forward definition that has relevance to me. Because if we want to say, I was on America's Got Talent. I've toured the world. I've played for everybody, hung out with supermodels and top DJs and actors and everything else, all of this stuff. So one could say, I made it or whatever from that perspective. ultimately, asking that question just refers to either a subjective analysis or an objective analysis. I always try to lean towards objective analysis. So from an objective analysis, it just refers to achieving sufficient financial viability. So that's what making it means to me.
Thanks for answering that. I personally view it, I never really share my perspective on that, but when people say they've made it, I see it as a continual. I see it as it's the journey. It's the journey and what you do with that. That's my personal take on it. But I appreciate yours as well. And it's always interesting to hear how many extremely successful people answer that question or don't.
I would agree. I agree. I agree. I feel the continuum on it too. That's why it's awkward for me to answer it in a vertical. I feel it's very horizontal. It's an ongoing thing.
Right. That's where I'm at with it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
But I'm focused on being in the pantheon with Art Tatum. That's the ultimate making it for me.
Sure. My second question, can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Relentless pursuit is number 1. Relentless pursuit. Number 2 is extreme readiness to learn and make a radical transformational change in approach. And number 3 would be a rigid analysis process with regards to the preciousness of one's mind. One has to have a sense of absolute devotion to the purity of truth, but also to the process, one's personal process of accruing truths. And what I'm trying to say there is never let anyone rush you through your learning process. So number 2, I said, be ready to radically learn stuff and et cetera. Be extremely open to that. However, number 3 is a corollary to that, which is you might be a slow learner in certain elements. Be okay with yourself being a slow learner in certain elements so that you don't get talked in or out of stuff that could be detrimental for you. See, we all are going to have to learn stuff, and we're all going to have to learn stuff that's radically transformative and could require a radical change of approach or plans, etc. That's fine. Okay, we need to be ready for that, open for that. However, just like the human body, we don't change fast. We don't lose weight super quick. That's for our protection. So similarly, for your mental protection, make sure there's a strong filter in the process before we make those heavy changes. Never let people fast talk you out of that or whatever, because it works against the first 2 principles of relentless pursuit. If you're relentlessly pursuing something, then you got to go whole hog through it all, through the fires, through all that stuff. Number 2, while you're going whole hog, it has to be an adaptable system so that if you have to make a radical change of course for your relentless pursuit, okay, solid. Okay, we got to make a change here, y'all. we're still relentlessly pursuing. We have to modify. Okay. And number 3, we heavily scrutinize any suggestion of change, though. While we're open to it, we're going to scrutinize the heck out of it, because people will have you all over the place. People can give you some wrong information. You're going to be wrong enough as it is. You don't need extra wrong information. It's hard enough to survive your own bad choices or erroneous choices. Hard enough. So the scientific method is to be worshipped, in my opinion. Scientific method. And so those are my 3.
Thank you. Final question to you, and then you get closing thoughts. At this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self? I'm talking about young Eric growing up in a house full of music. This house full of music, the one you're sitting in right now.
I would say yes, keep going. Because looking back, there's not one thing that I could have or even necessarily should have changed. I needed to make all the mistakes that I've made. I needed to learn everything that I've needed to learn. And the only way I made those mistakes was being so hell-bent on chasing, relentlessly pursuing that fire inside of myself to be one of those dudes like Train, Bird, or Cole, or Miles, etc., Tatum. So that ambition, the relentless pursuit of my ambition, was going to lead me to T-bone things, or to slam here or slip and fall here or whatever. Even the darkness, even the pernicious, bitter darkness of panic attacks and depressions and other mistakes. All those things were part of the human condition that had to be interacted with so that I could bring something to the table at this level and even higher levels. I mean, I'm still raising up. There's amazing stuff on the way.
Oh, you were just scratching the surface of your personal beauty.
I've just finally
and magnificence.
I've breached it. Now I'm pedal to the metal.
Yeah, right.
So what would I tell that? There's nothing I could tell that kid. I mean, I needed all that stuff. I needed to be called crazy. I needed to go through all that because that's all part of the texture of the story. That's all part of the grain and the grit and the part that you substantiate as authenticity. That's what causes it to resonate, because of the true north, the compass, the time in, the quality of survival, the fact that you can feel the gravity of the threats that I had to go through to achieve some of these things, even not knowing the threats themselves. The resultant is so rare and different. What did you have to go through to get that? But that's the same question that I asked when I was sitting right above us in my great-grandmother's room after she was gone. Before I went to college, I was listening to Coltrane live at Newport on her record player. And I was thinking to myself, I was like 18 at the time, getting ready to go to school, 17, 18. Thinking, I want to play like this. In order for me to do this, I can hear it inside of Coltrane's music. I'm going to have to suffer greatly. I'm going to suffer to play like that. Because this ain't magic. This ain't rocket science. What he's doing, this is real grit here. This is just real workman, laborer,
it's
metal work.
Blood and guts and pain and heart and life.
Precisely. This is real goon stooge type toe to toe ground and pound, just blunt force happening here. This is pure will. This is perseverance. This is all that stuff. This is suffering. This is a story to tell. This is sharing. And the only way that I'm going to be able to do that, if I want to do that, is to go through it. I got to be willing to go through it. So I made that pact with myself on my great grandmother's bed right above here, that I said, okay, breath. I looked around and I said, okay, I'll take the suffering. And so that began the trail, that hike. Now we're here.
And you're smiling as you're saying that, which is really beautiful. Thank you for your transparency and your open heart and your ferociousness and your warrior approach to life, but still having this beautiful heart. You are magnificent. And now I understand why I love your music so much, because it's who you are and everything that you are saying and doing. I really appreciate you.
I love you too. And thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
What a gift. We do love you. Yeah. And anything you want to close with?
Stay tuned. There's some very cool
I love it.
Very cool stuff coming later on this year. So just hang out. If you're not already a member, I do a live stream every night about 8:30 Eastern when I'm in town. I created a secret society during quarantine. It's called the Quarantine Kitchen Society, QKS. And I practice essentially, I pretty much DJ for about 3 hours every night. And it's tons of guests come through, and sometimes celebrities will pop through there. We have our core group, and people visit and just hang out, and we're chatting and stuff. I'm chatting while I'm playing and all that kind of thing. So I invite everybody to come hang out at ELEW Rockjazz, Instagram, ELEW at ELEW Rockjazz, 8:30. Just follow and just become part of the society. I'll keep you posted when I'm in town or when I'm leaving town, stuff like that. But I ask you to do that because that way you can be privy to this build that's about to happen and the very cool things that are going to be coming down the pipeline in the fall.
Thanks for letting us know about that. Everybody do it. Do it. And ELEW, you stay strong. Hold your course, brother. I love you. And just am excited for everything more that's coming.
Me too. I look forward to our next hang.
The door is open, and I look forward to it as well. Everybody, Dr. Lisa, Melanie from over there in the UK, thanks for staying up late to join our conversation. Everybody in our live virtual audience and everybody who listens to the streaming of this show, we appreciate you so much. And so I just want to say, stay safe, stay inspired. We'll see you next week. And ELEW, take good care.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.